All right, guys, so we're going to go ahead and do this. Finally, people have been asking for a very long time. We're going to make an Elden Ring boss tier list. There's people that come into my streams every single day, no matter what game we're playing, and they'll ask, hey, what is your favorite boss in Elden Ring? We're going to figure that out together right now. Generally, I often say Malenia, just because she was the one that gave me the most challenge, and I do enjoy being challenged when it comes to the games I play. So I felt like that was always just kind of a bit of a cop-out, just because it was the only thing I really judged when it came to how I enjoy bosses overall. So in this tier list, we're going to be judging bosses on, first and foremost, the challenge that they do offer, and then the drip, the armor set that they're wearing alongside the weapons they're using, the overall move set that they use and how annoying or cool it is somewhere, along the line. If 1 is annoying and 10 is cool, then we'll judge them, kind of along that line there. And so that'll forge our list together. And I know that everyone's going to have their own opinions, and that's fine. Just keep in mind, this is my tier list. I will include a link for this specific tier list in the description down below if you would like to make yours and share them in our Discord channel. I also will put a link to the Discord channel if you would like to join up on that as well. With that said, let's go ahead and get started. I hope that this has all the bosses. Obviously, there's a lot of duplicated bosses throughout the game, but this should be the majority of them. I found this list already on Tier Maker, so if anything is missing, or if I happen to spot anything missing, then obviously we'll kind of go from there. However, let's go ahead and get started. We're going to go from the top to the bottom here. Battle Mage Hugos. Now, I think Battle Mage Hugos has some very cool spells. I love the gavel, the giant hammer, the hammer of judgment is amazing. One of my favorite spells in the whole game. And then he has the glintstone mortar attack. I'm not quite sure what it's called, but it's also very fun to use. I'm actually, because of that alone, am going to judge this guy very, very well. His moveset is awesome. Not a fan of his armor too much. He does have a pretty cool club. That is pretty cool. So we're going to go ahead and put him at a B for now. Now, keep in mind that we will probably adjust this as time goes on. We'll move people up and down as we see fit. But I'm going to put him at a B just because of his moveset. Everything else about him I'm not really a fan of, but his gavel and the mortar are awesome. Okay, Beast of Farum Azula. This is actually the very first boss that I fought and defeated in Elden Ring, aside from the Tree Sentinel. So when I first started the game, he was the first dungeon. He was in the first dungeon. And obviously there's much stronger ones in Farum Azula in the game itself. But overall, I don't find them to be all that great. I don't really like much about them. I understand that they're like their own society of beings in the game, but I don't really like much about them. I can't really say anything good about them. Aside from the ones that cast the dragon lightning, those are all right. They're cool because magic, right? That's kind of neat. So I'm actually going to put these guys at an F. I just don't really like them very much. Not a fan of the Beasts of Farum Azula. Sorry. Next up is Bell-Bearing Hunters. Now, Bell-Bearing Hunters and Elmer of the Briar are the same thing, and they're both on this list. I actually really, really like these guys. The Bell-Bearing Hunters can be very challenging, specifically the one in Caelid. That's the most challenging one in the game. Extremely difficult fight, and I do believe is even stronger than Elmer of the Briar himself. But all the same, they have the same movesets, same weapons, same armor. It's just, they have different areas in which they invade. As far as the Bell-Bearing Hunters at Knights, and then Elmer of the Briar is at Shaded Castle. I'm going to put these guys at A. And the reason being is they do have my favorite weapon in the whole game, which is the Mirai's Executioner Sword. Love that thing. It is so incredibly fun to use. Their armor set is really cool as well, aside from the helmet. I would like the helmet so much more if it wasn't crooked. The face of the helmet is crooked, and it bothers me. I feel like they just kind of gave it a goofy twist for the sake of being goofy. I don't really know, but I would put these guys at S if it was not for the helmet. Straight up, I would put them at S. They have one of the most dominating movesets in the game, hyper aggressive. They do not like you getting away from them. They have several moves that will help them not only close the gap with the shield bash, but also moves that will devastate you at mid-range with the Darth Vader-esque kind of waving of the sword, and then moves that are close range that will dominate you as well if you fail to roll or parry. So I think that these guys are very cool. If it wasn't for the helmet, they would be S tier. All right, Borealis of the Freezing Fog, one of the many dragons of the game, but the only frost-based dragon in the game. He does have some very powerful moves with his frostbite-based breath, as well as he has the roar that causes frostbite as well. I think that Borealis and Exyx are the coolest dragons in the game, just because they do stand out with their own unique elements. Decaying Exyx having, rot-based moves, and then Borealis having frost. But overall, I think as cool as the dragons are, the fights are awkward, right? They look cool. Their movesets are all right. The movesets are cool in their own rights, but they're so easily counteractable that it just kind of, like, dragon fights in the game are just kind of meh after the first time you do them. So to be nice, I'm going to put them at B. Both Decaying Exyx and Borealis, these two stick out individually because of their unique elements. Now, the other thing that I will say is the Dragon Lord Placidusax, right here, he's not going to stay at B. Dragon Lord Placidusax has some incredible moves by himself, and I have to talk about him here because he is the Dragon Lord, but he stands out so far and away from all the other dragons in general. He has the Bolt of Grandsax. He's got the fire breath that becomes laser beams, right? He's got the two different attacks in which he becomes lightning clouds and then smashes into the ground at high speed. He literally controls blinking and teleportation capabilities. Dragon Lord Placidusax shows off an immense amount of power with only 2 heads. If he was at full form, I don't think that the player in the game could actually kill him. Straight up, I just do not think it would be possible. Dragon Lord Placidusax was weakened over time, and so he only has 2 heads left, and therefore he's just not nearly as powerful as he once was. I'm going to put him at an A. Dragon Lord Placidusax, incredibly cool, some of the most unique moves in the entire game, as well as the animations specifically for the games, I love. I think they're incredibly good. Love, love, love Dragon Lord Placidusax just for that alone. The fight isn't overly difficult once you kind of get in the vibe of it, but he can be tough if you don't know the pacing as well as how to counteract his attacks. So he can be tough or incredibly easy depending on what you have going on. Anyways, moving on to Cemetery Shade. These bosses, man, they're annoying to fight because of their constant blinking as well. Even more so than Dragon Lord Placidusax. These things will blink like 10 times in a 2-second window. That just makes it very frustrating to fight. Luckily, they don't have a very large health pool. I will say that their weapons are cool. The Mantis Blades, that's about their only saving grace. Overall, I just kind of find them annoying to fight. I just, like, whenever I go to a dungeon and they're in the dungeon, I'm just kind of like, oh, God. All right, I guess. So I'm going to put these guys at a D. Their only saving grace is they're cool. They're cool little swords. That's pretty much it that's going on for them. Okay, Queen Marika Knights is next. Now, there are 2 different versions of the Queen Marika Knights. They both have the little thrusting swords, and then one has a spear and one has a halo scythe, I think it's called. The ones with the halo scythe throw out the holy damage-based discs of light, and then the one with the spear has the one that he puts up like the walls of spear. He does the little thrust moves with it, all that stuff. I actually kind of like their armor set as well. They're very, very cool. I think their art style based on their armor is dope. Their move sets can be anywhere between absolutely dominating, depending on RNG, or just kind of, they just stand there. It seems like there's a very wide window of what they're capable of. So I'm going to put them at, I'm going to go C on this one. Their big saving grace is the way they look. Overall, you find a few of them in Elfale at the base of the Hayleaf tree, and then you find a few more in the Aeonian Swamp in Caelid, And then there's some scattered throughout the other places like Shaded Castle and stuff like that. You generally find them in a lot of places that are related to Melania. And so that is why you find them in the locations that you do. Yeah, I think C is solid for them. I like their weapons. I like their armor. I think that overall they're they can be very annoying to fight sometimes. But yeah, I think C is fair for those guys. Commander Nile. This is the first time I fought Commander Nile, one of the toughest fights in the whole game for me. This guy was something else until I learned how to parry him. Once I learned how to parry him, it became one of my favorite fights. I'm going to put him at an A. They've got incredibly good looking armor. Commander Nile and Commander O'Neill. Where's Commander O'Neill? Is he on this list? Commander O'Neill. I'm not seeing him. Maybe we'll run into him later. They both have very similar movesets, except Commander O'Neill is more rot-based, where Commander Nile is lightning and frost-based. Very, very cool boss. Love fighting him. Once I learned how to parry him, I just kind of fell in love with that fight. I just love, parrying his halberd when he does his little dash move at you is just so gratifying. And to the fact that he has a rather unique weapon that it becomes a fist weapon, but it's actually his prosthetic leg. It's kind of cool. Anyways, that's where we put him. Blackblade Kindred. These guys are protectors of the Rune of Death. Very obviously Gargoyle-esque. They're just like Gargoyle 2.0. That's pretty much these guys. Gargoyle 2.0. Their weapons do a little bit of the Rune of Death, like health drain on you after they hit you. But overall, I generally do not fight them very often. There's the one in front of the Lift of Roll that kind of runs at you, and the other one is in front of Garank at his little building there over in Northeast Caelid. Man. Both these guys and the gargoyles are just kind of annoying. I don't know how you guys feel about them. Obviously, if you go at them with strike-based weaponry, they're easily workable. But overall, I just find them kind of annoying fights. They look all right. Again, their weapons are the coolest part. Everything else about them just kind of meh. I got to give these guys an F, if I'm honest with you. Blackblade Kindred and the as the Valiant duo here. Where are they? I'm not seeing them on this list yet, but I'm sure they're here somewhere. But yeah, I do not really like those guys at all. I just think that they're just kind of annoying. They can be a challenge, or they can be super easy as well. It's just like every playthrough of the game, it's very different. But either way, that's where I put those guys. Black Knife Assassins, dude, these are some of the best duels in the game. We're going to pull up Black Knife Assassin. I'm giving these guys an A. I love fighting these things. Especially when you're melee, you just get in there and you just kind of get in. It's just such a nitty gritty duel. I love it. You can get in there and roll and parry, counterattack, all that stuff. And it's just so incredibly cool. And the fact that they are resistant to most things, except like, I think Frostbite, it makes them just really tough fights for most players. I love their lore around how they took a part of the Rune of Death and imbued their blades with it. It's just, they're very tough fights because of that. Where's Electo? I know Electo's on this list. There you are. I'm giving them straight up an A. You know what? I'm going to give Black Knife Assassins in general an A, Electo an S. Electo, I think most people would agree, Electo is one of the hardest fights in the game for most players, unless you're abusing the hell out of Frostbite. I just love it so much. Like, especially Electo, where she has a couple of special, or no, not a couple, but she has one specific special move. It's like a mini Malekith ground slam that has a bunch of like the Rune of Death things going around when she slams the ground. It's just awesome. It's such a cool fight. It's a shame that she's locked up in an Ever jail and you don't really get to kind of fight in a more unique environment with it, but overall I love that fight. I look forward to doing that fight as often as I can. It's just so sick to me. I love it. Bloodhound Knight Darrowil. Bloodhound Knights in general, they're very easily counterable once you know their moveset. You can parry almost all of their moves. They're fun to duel, but I feel they're pretty average. I'm just gonna give them a C. Not really much to say there. A lot of people would debate that Bloodhound Knight Darrowil drops one of the better curved swords in the game with the Bloodhound Knight Fang, which I can agree. It does great bleed damage. It hits really hard with individual strikes, You find it nice and early, so that's pretty cool. But nothing remarkable about them. All right. Ball's Carrion Knights, which is a Carrion mage, but a giant. And nothing really great to say about this fight. It's just another giant, except it's casting some spells. Extremely easy fights, no matter what your build is. You find him at an Evergel in Western Liurnia. I think D is being generous just because it's unique because it's a spellcasting giant, which there's only a few of in the whole game. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Oh, there's Commander O'Neill right there. Commander O'Neill is very similar to Commander Nile, but Nile is a little bit cooler based on, his whole guarding, guarding of the second half of the Erdtree medallion. We're going to give O'Neill a B. I just like their armor sets. Very cool. Their battle standard is badass as well. But O'Neill's a little bit lesser than Nile, if you ask me. Crucible Nights. Now, this one is very hotly debated. Oftentimes, whenever we talk about it while I'm streaming in chat, people are like, oh, Crucible Nights are some of the coolest fights, or Crucible Nights are some of the most annoying fights. I'm on the side of their cool fights. I really, really enjoy fighting Crucible Nights. I love their parry capability, right? Not them parrying you, but you being able to parry them. One of the most parryable things in the entire game. It's so incredibly readable that if you do want to learn how to parry in the game, go fight Crucible Nights. They will teach you or punish you, and you will learn from it very quickly. But outside of that, when you're not going after parries, they have such a tight window of counterattack opportunity that it really allows you to become better at time management during fights. You need to learn your weapons. You need to learn the swing speed, the damage, all that, especially during their second phase when they become even more aggressive with whatever special crucible spell they have, whether it be the tail, the fire breath, the horns, whatever it is. You have to learn to counteract that extra move that they throw in their combos, which is pretty cool to me. So I'm going to give these guys an A. I think Crucible Nights are awesome. I love those fights. I look forward to them. Almost every playthrough that I do, I make sure that I take all of them out, with the one in Farum Azula being the only exception. Or I think there's two there. Yeah. There's one of them in Farum Azula that I generally skip over. But outside of that, man, I love fighting those things. Okay, next up is Crystallians. There's 3 different types of Crystallians, and they're often considered bosses in the game, but there are some in the game that are not bosses, specifically at the Erdtree, where they are of the Rot variant. You can also find the Rot variants in a dungeon over in Caelid. They are actually tied to, well, not the boss itself, but that dungeon is tied to a bit of a side quest with Selen. I think they're kind of neat. I just wish that we knew more about them. Reading over their weapons and stuff that you do get, you don't really learn a whole lot about them. I kind of wish there was more to it. I'm going to give these guys a nice little C. They're fun to parry, specifically the spear one. I don't think the other two are parryable. I can't remember if the disc one is parryable, and obviously the magic one is not. Their weapons are not all that great, but the Rot variants are fun to use. Nothing like a little bit of a rotten crystal sword or a rotten spear to kind of mess around with. Considering there's not a whole lot of weaponry with Rot in the game, they do have that going on for them. So just, yeah, they're kind of average to me. I really don't like the way they look. They're just kind of average. Yeah, that's pretty much it. And then we have the demi-human queen, Margit and Maggie. Dude, straight up F. Nothing great to say about them. Their moves are terrible. Everything is terrible about them. Everything. Yeah, I've got nothing good to say about them. Sorry. Demi-human chief. I think the only boss variant of the demi-human chief, you find 2 of them in a dungeon on the beach in Southwest Limgrave, right? So, man, I just don't like their movesets. Most of the time, they just kind of run around screaming at you, and you're just like, oh my god, go away, you know? Like, I just did that fight today on stream with my new sorcery-only playthrough, and, man, like, they're not difficult, they're not cool, they don't offer you anything good, they don't teach you anything. Yep, straight up F. Straight up F. Divine Bridge Golem. So there's a couple golems in the game that are considered bosses, but the Divine Bridge golem, I believe the Divine Bridge is in Lanedale, protecting the teleporter that takes you to Melania's tower. The golems are okay. Yeah, they're okay. I think they look cool. I love the idea of a nice giant metal and rock golem. I love the fact that they do breathe fire as well. It's kind of a cool way of the game showing that they have a bit of an exhaust that they can weaponize, essentially, because they are mechanized and they can kind of weaponize that whole idea. That's kind of neat. A lot of times they have halberds, which is awesome. I just kind of wish that they had more than just the halberds. Like, imagine a golem with a big old sword, or maybe 2 swords or something, you know? It kind of change up their movesets a little bit. Obviously, you have the ones with the great bows as well, but, you know, I'm just gonna kind of put them at C. I think that's fair. Their saving grace for giving them a C is just the way they look, and then the whole mechanization and exhaust letting out the fire type idea. That's cool. All right, Dragonkin Soldier of Noxtella. And I see Dragonkin Soldier here. I'm going to grade these guys a little bit differently because the one in Noxtella specifically has the Frost Lightning, which is so damn cool to me. I love the lore of the Dragonkin Soldiers. They tried to become dragons. It didn't work out. They became like close relatives in their own way, but like that was their final form. They're just kind of like a little bit deformed with dragon heads, you know? I will say that their fights can be annoying, but to me, that is also a good thing in this regard specifically because they can be challenging. The Dragonkin Soldier of Noxtella specifically, I'm giving a B because the Frost Lightning is dope. I love that. Plus the scene in which you fight it, the area, is very cool. You have that ancient throne with the giant skeleton on it. You have all the smaller skeleton statues down in the little area that you're fighting this Dragonkin Soldier. It's just so cool. And then the other Dragonkin Soldiers we're going to put at a C because they pretty much have the same movesets without the cool Frost Lightning. That's pretty much it. Erdtree Avatar. Everyone knows the Erdtree Avatars. They're very similar to the demons from Dark Souls. Literally like the same model, but they're just turned into trees. It's exactly them. That's pretty much it. That's all there is to say about them. Don't find them overly difficult. Aside from the Rot variants, they're a little bit more of a struggle, but the only one that's truly difficult is the 2 that you find in Elfale, because you have such a small area in which you have to fight them. It's kind of a bit of an artificial difficulty because of that, to me anyway. So yeah, we're gonna give this guy, I think D is fair. They're easy experience. If you're looking for a quick little burst in runes, like go fight an Erdtree Avatar, you know, go find one they haven't killed yet, go take it out. Easy runes. That's pretty much all they're good for. I don't want to give them a straight up F just because of nostalgia, having the same essential model as the demons from Dark Souls. I obviously it's a bit of a classic throwback. I love that idea. I'm glad that they kind of brought something into the game that is recognizable in that regard. That's pretty much it, man. That's all I got there. Erdtree Burial Watchdogs. These things suck, and I think everyone agrees. I'm much better at fighting them now, but generally speaking, their movesets were very awkward to understand because of they're very twitchy, right? And so it was kind of hard to tell. Like they're little, they're like micro. Oh, I don't know what the word is, but there's just like tiny little moments where you recognize that they're about to do something, specifically like their little sword smash, or the, you know, if it's the case of the other one, the smash with the club. You find these tiny little recognizable twitches that they have, but man, I don't like the weapons that they have are not great. Their movesets are just very irritating, and I don't mean like the cool fight irritating, like that was annoying because I got my ass kicked irritating. More like, oh my god, this is just flat out stupid. The constant ground smashing. I gotta give these guys an F. I just do not like them. I never have. Eskar, Priest of Blood. This is the guy that's wielding the dual Reduvias, and he's down in the dungeon at the very base level of the subterranean shunning grounds. I often fight this guy before I go fight Mog. This fight sucks. Depending on the build, because he has the 2 bleed-based dogs. Before they fixed the the bug with the dogs applying bleed like 17 million times in a fraction of a second. This is one of the most annoying fights in the whole game. It can still be rather annoying, but I don't know. For going all that way down there just to run into this guy, unless you're doing a bleed build yourself, there is absolutely no value in this fight. Because if you are doing a bleed build, he does drop the talisman that allows you to do extra damage whenever bleed happens in the vicinity, which is very good to have. Listen, if you're using Rivers of Blood, which I know many of you are, and that's fine, okay? If you're using Rivers of Blood, go fight Esgar, get that bleed talisman, put it in your set, thank me later. Until then, I'm giving this guy a D. Falling Star Beast. So the only one that I think is really worth mentioning is the full-grown Falling Star Beast, which is over here. The only one that has a special move, which is a giant charged particle beam laser that comes out of its eye. And that's the one over in Mount Gelmir. That's pretty cool. Everything else about their moveset is kind of lackluster. Even downright annoying if you're not able to understand like the range of their attacks. A lot of like instantaneous ground spikes, a lot of charging at you that's kind of hard to read. Obviously you learn how to dodge it. You can actually just run around without actually rolling out of the way when you learn how their charge works. And then they have like that jump attack where they're up in the sky for like what seems like 3 years, and then they suddenly smash the ground. And even if you think you roll it exactly how you should and you're not even close to the hitbox, you still get hit by it, and that sucks. Visibility and hitboxes are a big thing for me, and these guys have one of the worst in the entire game. I'm giving this guy a D only because of his cool eyeball laser beam charge particle beam thing, and the rest of them are getting Fs. Fell Twins, F. Nothing special about them. You fight them constantly in the subterranean shunning grounds, and then you go ahead and leave Lanedell, and then you walk towards the other tower out there, right? And then you find this little mock like Four Kings arena where it's suddenly everything is black around you, and then these two guys show up, and they're easy as hell. Like, I don't actually know their health pools, but I swear the Fell Twins have less health than the Fells at the bottom of the subterranean shunning grounds. I swear it. Like, there's two of them specifically that I think that are stronger than these ones. What the hell is that about? Anyway. Eldon Beast, probably the most hotly debated boss that I have seen in all of Elden Ring. A lot of people feel like, oh, it's terrible because it's so different from the rest of the game and it just feels so out of place. And while it is pretty, its moves are terrible. And to a certain extent, I agree. But I think it was kind of cool to have a boss that was not the same as everything else in the game. Perhaps it wasn't the best play to make it the final boss for a moveset like this. I think it would have been cooler if it had some more phases to it. Don't hate me for saying that. But if it did have more phases to it where you fought it on a more personal level, I think it would be cool. The fact that it's more of a bullet hell boss than a standard like Soulsborne boss kind of takes a lot of that gratifying last fight away from players, and I think that's why a lot of people don't like it. I'm gonna give Elden Beast a C. I think it looks cool. It's intergalactic Nessie. You know, intergalactic Nessie is cool. So its moves are pretty. The music that plays during the fight is some of the best in the whole game. It's glorious. The fight with Ratagon and then Elden Beast, two of the best songs in the whole game to me. And then that's pretty much it. It can be depending on RNG with the moves, and I feel like this fight has been changed a dozen times since release, but depending on the RNG of its moves, it can be either terrible or great. I'm just giving it a C based on that. Fia's champion, I thought the whole idea of Fia and her champions was terrible. Did not enjoy, I never enjoy those fights. I generally just kind of kill them all as quickly as possible. I usually like to kind of mess around with bosses and try to like parry them or dodge counterattack or like dodge roll behind backstab type idea. But with these guys, I just straight up get rid of them as soon as possible, especially when there's 3 at once. Oh my God, it's so annoying. I just didn't really like how that whole thing played out. However, the Lich Dragon that comes up after you complete that whole thing, also very cool. We're giving the Lich Dragon an A. It's the only dragon in the game. I forgot to talk about this earlier with the other two dragons, Borealis and Exyx. I'm giving this one an A though, because it does have death magic, which is pretty cool. But also I just think it has a little bit more interesting of a backstory compared to a lot of the other dragons in the game. So if you don't know that, look into Lich Dragon Fortisax. Pretty badass, albeit sad, but yeah. Fire Giant, another hotly debated boss. I don't understand why people find Fire Giant difficult. I'm going to be honest with you, and this is not a bragging point. This is just a matter of Fire Giant is easy if you know how to fight it. What you want to do, if you don't know, in the first phase, in the first half of health, hack away at its left foot. In the second phase, when it's crawling around, it still has one foot, okay? Go beat up the other foot. Get on your horse, stay behind it, keep on beating up the toes. Don't worry about its hand. If you knock it down, don't worry about its damn eyeball. Just keep hitting that foot, especially if you're using something like bleed or frost or poison. Just keep applying those, and they will take care of the fight for you. It's, man, that to me, Fire Giant is the easiest boss, like easiest main story boss in the game. But that said, it is kind of cool. It's also kind of sad that it is the final giant in the whole game, and you kind of go out there and beat them up. We're gonna give this I think a C. I think a C is fine for the Fire Giant. Yeah. Flying Dragon Agil, incredibly cool the first time. Every time after that, it's like, oh god, let me just kill this thing real quick for some quick runes, I guess. D, nothing special to say there. Very standard dragon. I still think that the dragons in this game are some of the better in a lot of video games, especially ones that are not turn-based. There's obviously some really great dragon fights in turn-based games, but when it comes to like straight up live action combat, live action is not the right word, straight up action combat, like non-stop, non-turn-based, no pausing type combat, it just kind of makes it a little bit weird. But I do think that they are some of the best in gaming here. That may be a hot take, but I don't know. I can't think of any other games that really do it like this or even close to this, though they are still kind of janky. Glintstone Dragon Sumarag, dude, it's just the same thing as Agil, just Glintstone. Nothing special. Nothing special. Okay, we have Godfroy the Gifted, and that means we also have Godric. Where's Godric here? Godric the Grafted right there. Honestly, I found Godric the Grafted a lot easier than Margit in my first few playthroughs, and now I find it the other way around. But because he was a little bit more easy, I kind of felt like he should have been reverse role. But now that I understand the lore more, obviously we know why Margit was at the gates and Godric was at, you know, closer to the throne room. But I will say his axe is incredibly good. Do not sleep. I just used this on one of my more recent playthroughs. Do not sleep on Godric's axe. It's called Axe of Godric. You get it from his soul. Do not sleep on that thing. It is incredibly good. Massively good. Go try it out. Trust me. Overall, the fight, I love the idea of him just kind of plugging his arm into a dragon and having like a dragon hand. That's kind of cool. But I think that's his only real saving grace. And then Godfroy, because he doesn't have that, and he's just kind of Godric phase 1 the whole fight. It's just like, meh. Not interested. That's one of the Everjails I try to forget about. Not interested. That's it. Godfrey the First Elden Lord. Incredible badass. So much cooler than Hoarah, though I understand Hoarah being the way that he is because of the lore. I don't think Hoarah's on this list, by the way. Yeah, I don't see Hoarah. Well, there's Valiant Gargoyle right there. Yeah, Hoarah is not on this list, but I'm telling you right now, if Hoarah was on this list, I'd be giving him a D rating. I'd be giving him a D rating, and that's only because his command grabs are so incredibly dodgeable, but if you fail to dodge them, you get so damn punished. Do not fail those dodges. While I see Valiant Gargoyle here, where did I put the other gargoyles? Where did I put them? Yeah, F. These guys are getting F too. They're just worse versions of that, and these guys are already F. Yeah, screw those guys. Anyways, Godfrey the First Elden Lord, specifically the Spirit of Godfrey, and then the actual fight with Godfrey before you fight Ratagon and Eldon Beast is pretty cool, pretty badass. Obviously he's much more reserved when he's not Horaloo, but I love his movesets. It's very, very dominating. He's aggressive, aggressive in a way that kind of makes sense for a taller humanoid boss, right? He's not like running at you like Horaloo is, but he's using that axe in an effective way to where he's almost always swinging at you. And I think that's cool because despite the size, the fact that that thing is always coming down on you is pretty impressive. I'm going to give him a B. I actually like that fight a lot, especially when you learn how to dodge. When you time the dodges and counterattacks, it's just a very satisfying fight. I enjoy that a lot. All right, we have Godskin Apostle, Godskin Noble, and Godskin Duo. I actually like the Godskin fights. I know a lot of people are tired of them being quote-unquote recycled, but there is a lore reason why. It's because they're a society around the Black Flame. They're not individual beings. Like, they're none of these guys are named. They're like, this guy isn't named Godskin Noble. His name is like Frank or something. This guy over here is Fred. And then over here you have like Frankie and Freddy. You know what I mean? So it's like they're a society. None of them are named, and they have their own backstory, and it's actually really cool. And I think this is the thing that I want to see most in DLC. I want to see what they have going on for the Black Flame stuff. I think that is like one of the coolest backstories of lore in the entire game, and we need to see more of that. Anyways, individually, Godskin Apostles are not all that great. Giving that a D. I do like their weapon. The Twin Blade is pretty cool. Godskin Nobles, I like them a little bit more because I find them fun to parry. I also find them to be a little bit weaker than the Apostles, but overall they're more fun for me because of the parrying, so we're going to go C. And then Godskin Duo is actually one of the tougher fights in the game for me. That the first few times I played through, it really gave me a struggle, and I enjoyed that a lot. I'm going to give this a B. Giving that a B here. I often say that I really enjoy this fight the most out of a lot of the games, but now that I'm comparing it to everything else while I'm thinking of everything here on the screen, I think B is fair for it. Crafted Scion, these things flat out suck. It's the first thing that you see in the game when you actually have control for the first time, you know? Their moveset is annoying. It's hard to find open windows of opportunity to really get in there and punish them because they have so many arms swinging at you constantly. Their weapons are all right. If you can get your hands on their weapon by going and killing the original one at where the game first starts, you can go back there, kill them, and get those swords. So that's kind of neat. But I got to give these things an F, man. Crafted Scions just suck. Nothing cool about them. Up next is Grave Warden Duelist. Grave Warden Duelists, specifically the Rot Grave Warden Duelists that you find in Consecrated Snowfield, have some of the sweetest looking armor in the entire game, in my opinion. And based on that alone, I have to give them an A. Overall, a lot of their fights are not hard, but I love their armor and their weapons are so cool. I actually used the rotten Grave Duelist axe. I forget what it's called, but it's the one. It's a colossal axe. You get it from one of the Rotten Grave Warden duelists in Consecrated Snowfield, just to the west of the liturgical town in Consecrated Snowfield. I used that weapon to defeat Melania, and it was just so incredibly heavy and slow, but so damn fun to use. It hit like a truck, man. I loved it. I love their armor. I love their weapons, specifically the Rot variants, giving them a straight up A. Kindred of Rot, these things suck. I think everyone agrees. The fact that they can put out a whole bunch of tiny little missiles that track you very, very well and stab you and slash you with a halberd at the same time, that's just cruel. Specifically, the Kindred of Rot, you find these guys in a dungeon. I believe there's 2 of them. They suck. Dude, I have nothing good to say about them. They make awful noises. They have way too many hands and legs. That's not fair to anyone. Their weapon isn't great. Their moveset's annoying in a bad way. Straight up F. Straight up F for Kindreds of Rot. Sorry. Leonine Misbegotten. I find Leonine Misbegottens easier than the Misbegotten warriors that have the axes. Oddly enough. Because you can actually stagger these ones. I think it's cool that There's a couple of them that have gotten their hands on very special swords. What does bug me, though, is the one that gets his hand on the grafted sword doesn't actively use it at the backside of Castle Morn. I feel like that was a missed opportunity. Either way, I don't really find these guys to be all that interesting. I think because of their moveset being rather dominating, I'm going to give them a D. But I have nothing good to say about them otherwise. Lion Guardian, I mean, they're cool. It was cool to discover that you can parry them. Specifically the ones at Castle Sol have the Frost Breath, which is interesting. They're very tough. Specifically the one over at Stormvale Castle early on. The first time you see these guys, it's like, what the hell? But that one's not considered a boss. I think D is fair. Nothing really exciting about them aside from that they're very aggressive. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Loretta, Knight of the Halig Tree, her weapon, her scythe is incredibly cool. I love that thing. You can parry Loretta as well, but specifically her version in the Halig Tree is a lot stronger than her spirit form over at Carrion Manor. You get her weapon when you defeat her there as well. That's kind of cool. Her armor set is all right. I just kind of wish... I feel like Loretta deserved better. I feel like Loretta deserved more. I feel like with her spell, specifically, Loretta's bow, and then the one that shoots like the 4 glintstone arrows at the same time is pretty badass. I think that her second phase should have been her first phase, and then she should have maybe gotten faster in phase 2 with her spell casting. Maybe that would be too dominating, but I feel like that would just be better for her. But I'm going to give Loretta a C just based on her weapon alone. It's pretty awesome. Mad Pumpkin Heads, there's several of them throughout the game. One variant has the flail, one variant has the giant warhammer, which is like a rock on a stick. And I got nothing good to say about these guys aside from their helmet's cool. I think a D is fair. Oh, we're a lot of lackluster here, a lot of D. Mimic tier, oh, I feel like the mimic tier is very easy to pull off in pretty much any RPG. The whole idea that a mimic just kind of copies you, makes you fight yourself, makes you think of the quote of from Liar Liar, I'm kicking my ass, do you mind? But a lot of people cheese this. A lot of people, when they see that they're about to fight a mimic tier, will take all their armor off, go in, and then like quickly put on a couple things to fight it and just dominate it. So a lot of people don't even take the time to respect the boss that it's meant to be. I don't know. I feel like this would have been better if... God, I don't know. There's got to be something that could have made this better. I'm giving this an F. I just don't really think it's great. Miranda the Blighted Bloom. Yeah. Yeah. Mog the Omen, and then we have Mog Lord of Blood. Mog the Omen is nothing more than just Mog Lord of Blood phase 1 as an entire boss fight. You find him in the subterranean shutting grounds. Nothing special, though. It was very cool seeing him in 2 different areas. I love his robes, and his weapon is pretty badass. His blood damage based trident is very cool. I'm gonna give Mog the Omen a C, and then Lord of Blood I'm giving an A, maybe an S. I think this is an S for me. Man, I'm gonna put him at S. I just think that his phase 2, his transition from phase 1 to 2 is so incredibly unique. The fact that he's putting a curse on you and he's counting down from 3 and yells 0 at you, and every time he yells 0, he's draining your blood unless you have the very specific tool in your flask to mitigate that curse. That is such a cool transition, one of the most unique in this game. I think that's awesome. And then his phase 2 moveset is just dominating. He's got all this blood flame everywhere that when you step into it actually covers you and continues to build up bleed like crazy. He flies around at you. He's ground pounding. He's causing fire, like blood flame explosions everywhere. I think that he's just so damn cool. I have to give him an S. I think that's awesome. His lore is a little bit creepy. Obviously, he's up there with Mikola. You know, it's a little bit creepy. But outside of that, man, he is a cool fight. I think that's great. His first phase, I give a C. The Omen itself, a C. Nothing too crazy about that. But his phase 2, automatic. Dude, I think that's deserving of an S for me. Magma Worm. There's several of them throughout the game. You have the one in Consecrated Snowfield being like the Grand Lord of them all. You can get their weapon. I like the idea of Magma Worms. I just think they deserved better as far as their moveset. I think the fact that their entire body, like their whole body hitbox becomes a weapon when they're just running around and it's so incredibly hard to get out of the way of, that's just a cop-out move to me. I just think that's not a good player mechanic at all. And then you have just the fact that they all have the same exact weapon, despite these being humans that, if you don't know their lore, they were humans that used too many Dragon Communion spells and they became worms. That's their backstory. That's their lore. So why are they all wielding the same weapon if these things are hyper intelligent? You know, they're humans or tarnished or whatever that use Dragon Communion incantations and became magma worms. Why are they all using the same damn weapons? That doesn't make sense to me. Granted, the game already has a massive variety in weapons, and I understand that, but I feel like they could have added a few more just for these guys. Not to mention, it would have made actually fighting them more interesting. I'm going to give them a D. I think that's fair. Melania Blade of Mikola, man, this fight is tough. And no matter how many times you play the game, this fight is tough. Even speedrunners, will say like they rely a little bit on RNG for this one to make sure that they don't get too many doses of the waterfowl dance. Her moveset is very readable, but punishing as hell if you mess up, which is very easy to do so. The only thing I don't like about her fight is it is a little bit too RNG based. There are moments when you can get like a guaranteed waterfowl. Specifically in her first phase, you can almost always draw out one at about 70% health and another at about 30% health. Outside of that, she'll just kind of throw them in there depending on if you make her bleed too many times, if you poison her, if you stay close for too long, if you parry her too many times, all that stuff. It just kind of like, you know what? You parried me. I'm just like literally right at the end of her being parried. She's like, all right, waterfowl. And man, that sucks. I wish it was more readable, but sometimes it's just the way it is. But I still think this fight is an absolute S. One of the toughest boss fights that From Software has put together to date. She has incredibly good looking armor. Her moveset is just so dominating. It's so intimidating based on that domination and the fact that she just walks at you. She often doesn't run until she's like active. She's like, you know what? I'm going to charge you now. But she'll just like walk at you and then she'll pace back and forth. That is intimidating. And then her cutscenes as well are pretty cool. Her phase transition from phase 1 to 2 is pretty badass. You think you defeated her and she's like, wait. You know, I think that's so cool. I think that's an S. Malekith. Dude, this fight deserves so much more. I can't believe how long this video is already, by the way. Malekith, the Black Blade. Man, this fight deserved more. I'm still giving it an S. Malekith is one of the coolest things to me. He's got a great backstory. He went out of his way to be very honorable and protected the Rune of Death until he failed. And then he turned himself into Garank because he wanted to seal it away so people would have a harder time getting to it and all that. That's really cool. That's great. But man, Malekith deserved more. He deserved more than just a second phase of half of a health bar. I'm sorry. He deserved more than that. He should have 2 full phases like Melania. You got to fight Garank to death, and then just as he's about to die, he's like, no, and then becomes Malekith, and then you have to fight him in his incredible moveset with a whole health bar. Granted, he becomes a lot easier when you do have the tool to parry him. That's awesome. But I still think that he has one of the best looking weapons in the game. His armor is awesome. And he is the only beast of Farum Azula in the entire game that is worth talking about. Awesome fight. Awesome, awesome fight that deserves so much more than what it got. All right, Margit the Fell Omen. Dude, the first time I loaded up this game and I went to fight Margit, he whooped my ass for literally 2 hours. 2 hours straight. Live on stream and everything. But that was before, you know, I really understood how the game worked. I'm giving Margit, because he is Morgoth, I'm giving Margit an A. Because he is a much more reserved Morgoth, but Morgoth is also an S. I love Morgoth. His fight is... His lore is sad, but honorable. And he is so incredibly powerful. And I think he could have deserved a little bit more. I think that his health bar is actually too low. It makes him a little bit too easy to defeat, but he is very mobile and he does a lot of damage very quickly. So I think that's why they reduced his health bar to what it is. He deserved more as far as that goes, in my opinion, but still a very cool fight. His phase 2 in that throne room is pretty badass. Pretty damn cool. Knights Cavalry. There are many throughout the game. I don't even know how many. I know that there's a couple in Limgrave. You have, you know, the one on the bridge near the beginning of the game. And then you have the one that's down in Weeping Peninsula. You've got the one over in Caelid. Or there's two over in Caelid that I know of. You've got the two in Consecrated Snowfields. You have the one that's just before the Rolled Lift. And then there's more that I probably can't think of right now. I think their armor set is badass. Their weapons look awesome. Their horses look awesome. Overall, I think these guys are worthy of a B. They're very optional fights. There's another one by the Academy in Liurnia as well, just to the north, as well as one over to the east. That's two more. There's several of them throughout the game. A lot of people don't like them because they're recycled, but I think everyone can agree they do look pretty badass. And if you don't know how to fight on horses in this game, then these guys will often just kick your ass. Nox Duo. There is nothing to say here about these guys. I think their weapons are lame. Their armor sets are lame. Dude, F. I'm sorry. Nox Duo is like, I forgot they existed. Omen Killer. These guys are all right. These guys are actually very dominating in combat as well. They will, you know, charge you with their swords, smashing on them, smashing the ground constantly. They got fire breath. They are not afraid to get into the fights. I think it's a fair C for the Omen Killers. I think that's fair. Patches. Everyone has a certain level of endearment for Patches, right? As far as considering him a boss, I don't really... I mean, I guess early game, because of like what he does, can be kind of hard to beat with his tower shield and spear combo. Though he does have a couple windows in which he's very easy to backstab. I think just based on endearment alone, though, it's going to be a B for me. Just endearment because it's Patches. Who doesn't love the Patches, man? He's in almost all of these, you know, From Software games, and man, it's just every time you see Patches, it's like awesome. you know you're going to get kicked off a cliff somewhere, and that's awesome. The Onyx Lords, the Alabaster Lords here. These guys are very fluent with gravity magic. They are masters of it. They're kind of cool. I do wish that... man, specifically the one that's considered a boss is just in front. He's at the end of a dungeon, or I think it's the Altus Tunnel, I think. They're not hard to fight. They're very easily parryable. The timing of their spells is very easy to dodge. Their lore is decent. I think they're rather average. I think C is okay. The big thing about them is because of like what they're wearing and everything, they have no poise. So it's just very easy to dominate these guys. They try to be dominating themselves with their moveset and their spell casting combinations, but it's just very easy to overcome. All right, Perfumatricia. Perfumers, hate them. No matter what version they are, perfumers are straight up annoying. The fact that they do so much damage for free is just, I find that incredibly stupid. Like, why should such a weak enemy otherwise be able to do such a massive burst of damage in such a wide arc? That's so weird to me. It doesn't, like, I guess it's a From Software thing, like this, oh, this person's just kind of like underwhelming, and then boom, all of your health is gone because they threw some sparkly stuff at you. I just don't like it. Future tree spirits, there's a lot of these tree spirits throughout the game, and all of them drop golden seeds, so they're definitely worth fighting. The future tree spirit that I think of the most, though, is there's a dungeon in Radagon's area. When you go all the way to the north, if you follow the coastline and go all the way to the north, you'll find a dungeon. At the end of this dungeon is a very specifically strong future tree spirit. It will whoop your ass in and out more than Radagon ever could. Believe it or not, that thing is tough. I think I rather like fighting them, though. They're just kind of flashy to dodge around, and if you mess up, then they punish you in a big way for it. That doesn't seem unfair. They're a little bit difficult to read, but when you do know how to read them, they're just kind of fun to fight for me. I'm going to give this a B. Ratagon of the Golden Order. I actually really enjoy Ratagon's fight. I'm not giving it an S by any means, but I do think it deserves an A. The whole idea, Ratagon and Marika being one being, and then Ratagon waking up when you enter the room and grabbing the hammer, and he's just like, no, you're not getting through me. It ends here. I think that's pretty badass. I love the way he looks. I kind of wish that he doesn't really have a phase transition. Like Ratagon phase 2 is Eldon Beast, right? I think the Ratagon and Eldon Beast thing should have been separated. I think Ratagon himself deserved more of a phase 2. You do fight like a phase 2 version of Ratagon. Essentially, when he gets lower health, he becomes a little bit more aggressive. He like his ground pound attacks do, wide AoE holy damage. He starts to throw more of the holy lightning spears everywhere. You know what I mean? He's got like the ground pound attack that covers like half of the arena and stuff like that. Like there is a little bit of a phase 2 there, but I think that it did deserve a little bit more. Plus the music for the fight is incredible. Just so incredibly good. I love it. Red Wolf of Ratagon. Man, I feel bad for the puppy here. Not a hard fight. I feel like the moveset does make sense because it's a wolf. Plus the magic is cool. But overall, I don't really... I think D is fair. Yeah. Nothing really great to say about it other than cool. Wolf casting spells. Rykard, Lord of Blasphemy. This fight is a gimmick fight. And there's different moments in which I feel different ways about Rykard. I think he is a very cool character, but I think being a gimmick fight meant to be taken down by the special spear very much so puts it in the same class as like Yorm, where it would have been better if you could take it on smoother with other different like weaponry and stuff. Not to say that you can't, it is possible, but it's just like the way the gimmick fight is set up, it's just incredibly frustrating to do so. And it narrows down like a major like story boss, right? And I genuinely do not like that. I have defeated Rykard using a bow, which he has so much health that it was kind of like, I'm very proud that I did it, but it was just like I will never fight Rykard without the gimmick weapon ever again. I think I'm going to give him a C. I think that's completely fair and generous. Scaly Misbegottens. I find them more irritating than the Misbegotten Warriors over here. Like Leonine Misbegotten. I'm going to give them an F. I don't like the Misbegottens. I just don't. Like their movesets are very annoying to try to read. They're not easily staggerable. Aside from the Leonines. They cover so much distance so quickly, all that stuff, man. I do not like it. Sir Gideon Ofnir, I think it's cool that Sir Gideon Ofnir is the all-knowing. When you fight him, he does like every spell imaginable, every like high-level spell, and I think that's pretty cool. His armor set's badass, his weapon is cool, but overall, the fight is kind of weird. You can actually, you can kill Sir Gideon Ofnir, and this happened to me twice. and his spells that last a certain amount of time will actually still kill you too, which is kind of weird to me. There's a few bosses like that, but it's happened with Gideon Ofnir the most. I think it's cool that he's knowledgeable enough to understand very specific spells like Melania's Scarlet Rot spell, the Glintstone Comets, Rykard's Flame Skull spell, all that stuff. I think it's cool that he understands how all that works, and he's like hyper intelligent in that regard. I think it's okay. But his saving grace for me is definitely his armor set. That's pretty cool. I'm giving him a C. Soldier of Godric, hardest fight in the game, S tier. I'm just kidding. It's I think because of the endearment around him, D. The endearment, and then there's nothing else to say about him, you know? That it is what it is. Spirit Caller Snail, these things are outright irritating if you do not know how to fight them. Specifically, you have one in a dungeon in the western area of Liurnia where he summons a Siluria tree wielding Crucible Knight, but you can just run to the back of the room and basically destroy the snail really quickly if you can see the glow. And then you have the one that summons the Godskin Apostle and then Godskin Noble, and you can't actually fight that one until after you get through both Godskins. So I think it's a neat idea. I don't know. There's a certain level of me that doesn't like it at the same time. I think D is fair, just based on the idea that there's these random snails that are so incredibly powerful. They summon the spirits of other powerful beings. Like that's a kind of neat idea, but I don't really know a whole lot about them other than that. And you don't really, I haven't myself seen a whole lot of lore on them otherwise, so I don't even know why they exist. So I got to give them a D, and that's just based on the idea that they're powerful enough to do that. Regal Ancestor Spirit, beautiful music around these fights here, both the regular Ancestor Spirit and the Regal Ancestor Spirits. Has one of the hardest to dodge moves in the game for me though, with the roll attack during phase 2 of the Regal Ancestor Spirit. It just kind of rolls at you, and it's just so awkward to dodge. I'm like 50% successful on it. It's like a coin flip whether or not we make it out. I'm gonna give this one a B, just because I love how the fight works aside from that one move. And then the regular Ancestor Spirit, we're going to give a C. Renala, Queen of the Full Moon, I think is not a great fight. Could have been a lot better. Her phase 2 is obviously a lot better than her phase 1. Her phase 1 is just kind of why, right? Why even have it exist? But she can be either extremely easy or extremely annoying based on your build. I think that putting her at C, you know, kind of mid-tier is rather fair. The fact that she's kind of just infatuated with the little thing she's holding in her arms, she's kind of lost herself since Ratagon left her. And the fact that she's introduced in her phase 2 by Ronnie, it's just very interesting to me how all that works. I think someone once said in chat while I was streaming that the phase 2 fight of Renala is not actually Renala, but a spirit version of Renala that's represented in her strength by Ronnie, which is interesting to me. I'll have to read more up on that and how that all works. Royal Knight Loretta, this is the one that I talked about earlier. You actually fight Royal Knight Loretta over at the Carrion Manor. Where do we put Loretta? The actual version of Loretta, the real version, the non-spirit version. Where are you? Right there at a C? That's what I thought. I'm going to give this one, I mean, it's pretty much the same thing, but I think that's a C as well. It's pretty much the same thing. It's just the bow attack that's a little bit different. Everything else is identical, I think. Even like the Ash of War on the war side there is pretty much the same. Royal Revenants suck. I think everyone agrees. The only time that you should ever really consider them easy is if you happen to use the holy healing spells that instantly breaks their poise. That's the only time they're really easy to fight. Everything outside of that, they just suck to fight. They're very dominating to a point where you can't even breathe. You can't even roll. If you fail one roll, you're failing the next 10 rolls. That's just how it is with these things. I hate them. Rune Bears are very much the same way, but in a lesser capacity. I'm giving Rune Bears a D just because they're not as terrible as Royal Revenants. Star Scourge Radahn, I'm giving that fight a straight up A. Radon is awesome when you learn how to time your dodges and you learn how to really get underneath him and beat him up at his legs and stuff like that. It's just a very cool fight. If you make a mistake, he punishes you very fairly for it. The hitboxes on his weapons being fixed after the very first patch in the game, I think is awesome, and the fight performs very well because of that. I love the way he comes in with phase 2, where he launches himself up into the sky and becomes a comet and smashes into the ground. The first time I ever saw that, I was in awe as that thing smacked me right in the face and insta-killed me. It was just a very cool thing to experience. I really do like that fight. I think it's very, very good, and I look forward to it every time. Stone Digger Troll. You find this in a dungeon at the very beginning of the game, and I think there's a couple more in the game as well. I don't think they're anything special. They're very easy to fight. Their moveset is extremely readable. I think a D is fine for them. Nothing really stands out special about these guys. Tibia Mariners, also known as Boat Necromancers. I love the idea that death magic is represented in the game, but it is so incredibly weak in the game. The strongest variance of the death magic is basically the Tibia summons, and then the Ghost Flame that you get in the Consecrated Snowfield, which is far too late for a cooler spell like that. I like the idea of necromancy and death magics in general as well, but the way it's put with a magic-based skeleton in a boat is very weird to me. I'm going to give these guys a C, just because I am a fan of death magics and necromancy in video games, but the representation of it in a boat is just odd. I maybe there's more to that lore that I haven't seen before, but it's just odd to me. Tree Sentinel. I love fighting the Tree Sentinel at the very beginning of the game. Every time I make a new character, no matter what my build is going to be, I always fight the Tree Sentinel at the beginning of the game. I love it. It's a great way to kick off the game. I love their armor set. It's super fly, if people still say fly these days. Their halberds are badass. I like most things about the Tree Sentinels. I'm going to give that a straight up A. I think Tree Sentinels are dope. Wormface. Wormface is something you fight over in Altus Plateau, just outside of Lanedale to the west. Their Death Blight is pretty dominating. If you don't have a whole lot of resistance to it, I think it's immunity. Their hitbox with their legs is very awkward. It's kind of hard to hit them, but they can hit you very easily when they stomp, and I hate that. I don't like the idea of misbalanced hitboxes. It's just so awkward. I'm sure it's explained in a lot of ways by, you know, it's just a powerful stomp from a giant being, blah, blah, blah. I get it. Doesn't make it any less annoying. I think a D is fair for Wormface. The Abductor Virgins, I think a lot of people would agree with these things being kind of annoying to fight, but I do like the idea that there's a bunch of snakes inside that kind of like pull you in and they beat you up. I also like the idea, it's very steampunk, right? It's very steampunkish, where they have like these different, like there's two different ones where they have like the wheels with all the blades on them, and then you have the hooks on chains type idea. I think it's kind of cool that they have their own unique movesets with that. I think that's their only saving grace, is just the fact that they are steampunkish in that regard. I think that's cool. Adon, Thief of Fire, has a flail, and he casts one of the rarest spells in the game that you can get from him after defeating him out as Everjail. Overall, very easy fights. The spell isn't very worth getting, though. I will be honest with you, it's just kind of lackluster in its damage for its FP cost. I think a D is fair. I don't think I've ever heard anyone say that they love that fight. Go ahead and prove me wrong if you can leave a comment if you made it this far in the video. Do you like that fight? I don't think it's anything great. Definitely not one of the exciting Everjails in the game. Another Alabaster Lord. Where did I put the other one? I think I put it at C. Or was it D? It was Onyx Lord. Where was it? Oh, I did put it at C. Alabaster Lord is pretty much the same, just a slightly different moveset. Very, very similar, just different gravity magic, essentially. Ancient Hero Zamor, these things are really cool. I love their armor. I love their swords. Their moveset overall is fascinating. It's very fluid. You can definitely tell that they're very specific about having their own fighting style. I wish that we can get their armor and weapon earlier in the game so that way you can make more use of it, but I think these deserve a B. I think the Ancient Heroes of Zamor are very cool. There's a couple of them you can find, one in Everjail in the Weeping Peninsula, and then you find another one in a Hero's Grave. I think you find the one at the Hero's Grave in Mountaintops, the Mountaintops region. And that's the one you can get the weapon and armor. Very, very cool. Okay, the last boss, or last two bosses, are Astal, Natural Born of the Void, and Astal, Stars of Darkness. I love the idea of beings that came to the planet that Elden Ring is based on from the stars. Obviously, Eldon Beast, the Astals, and the Falling Star Beasts are all intergalactic in some capacity. And they came to the planet via, comets crashing into the Earth. And, kind of going from there. I think these are actually okay. A lot of people find these things annoying, but to a certain capacity I do too, but I love how they feel so out of place because of how they work. They're very, they're very powerful with their gravity magics. They have very interesting body shapes. They look like scorpion dragonflies with human skulls. I think, I don't know who designed these things, but man, they must have been high out of their mind when they did. I'm giving these a B. I think that's fair. Both of them have the same moveset aside from the way their meteorites work. I think everything else is the same. I think that's fair. I think I actually like those fights myself. But okay, this is my my tier list of the Elden Ring bosses. So next time when someone asks, I'm going to refer them to this video. Here you go. This is my Elden Ring tier list. My favorite fights are Alecto, Mog Lord of Blood, Melania, Malekith, and Morgott. Those are my favorites. Very closely followed up by Elmer of the Briar and Bell-Bearing Hunters. I feel like these guys are between A and S. If I had another rank of A+, those guys would be the only A+, I think. Everything else would still be A. Yeah, I think these guys deserve an A+. I don't want to put them at S, but I don't want to put them at A. Somewhere in between, just because I love how they work. But anyways, guys, this video has gone on long enough. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for leaving all the love on the video. I haven't ever done a video like this, and I appreciate you guys sitting through it with me. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Let me know your thoughts. Where would you put all these things? I know it would be very long comments to kind of go and list everything, but let me know what your favorite fights are. I want to know what you enjoy about certain bosses in the game. Let me know, okay? With that said, I'm out of here. Thank you all for watching. I will see you soon for more streams. Until then, be excellent to each other. Later, folks.